Okay, today on the show, we have Elizabeth Averyanova from Studio Classica. Now, let me tell you more about Elizabeth. Now, Elizabeth is a brand strategist, also a digital marketing expert, a web and architectural designer, and she's also the founder of Studio Classica. Elizabeth helps purpose-driven entrepreneurs and industry leaders scale their online businesses with an impactful, beautiful, and DFY design so that they can attract dream clients, elevate their online presence, and book out their offers while creating a lasting impact in the world. She has fully transformed the online presence of many real estate professionals and experts. So Elizabeth knows what it takes to stand out, attract people who want to work with you, and close more real estate transactions. Elizabeth, welcome to the show all the way from Latvia.
Thank you so much, DJ. I'm excited to talk today.
I am a marketing person at heart, and I am going to do my best to not take over this conversation because this is your episode, but I live, eat, and breathe marketing. My sister is a brand manager or a CMO, but started off as in brand management. So this is my wheelhouse. I don't know as much as you, but I am super passionate about this, and I'm so excited to have you because I think this is a conversation that realtors oftentimes struggle with, trying to figure out what is my brand? How do I present that to my audience? How do I demonstrate who I am on social, on my website, in my print advertising? And so we want to have those conversations with you because this is what you do. I would love to start with your background. Tell us a little bit about how you got into brand management.
Yeah, perfect. So I'm a designer like pretty much my whole life, and actually my background is in architecture. And from my education in those fields, I started my own design business 10 years ago, where we were serving in the architecture space and design space, and really focusing on online services and reaching people pretty much around the world through the internet, which is amazing. And in the past 2 years, I really decided to focus in on the branding side of it and the marketing side of it, because I also, like you, I love marketing and I love figuring out online business things and, tying it together to really help people connect with their ideal client and help them grow their business to a whole new level. And so I got into branding through the way of wanting to really help people who are coaches in the space, who are industry leaders, who are really changing the game in their field, in their niche. And real estate came about because I have a brief foray into real estate. It was my only corporate job, and it was a pretty short experience, but really amazing. Which is I actually was a research and advisory assistant at Colliers International.
Sure.
Which I get now. I was like, wow, that's really a big deal.
It is a big deal.
At the time, I was just it was 10 years ago. I was a lot younger, and I was just, not quite sure. I don't even know how it came about, how I got accepted to this sort of position. But the catch here is I was in an international office, and in Riga, Latvia, and everyone only spoke Russian and Latvian languages. I'm a native English speaker, and I didn't speak those languages, and it was a whole different experience. But that was my first initial delve into real estate, and I'm really excited now. I get to tie all these past experiences together to really focusing. A big area of our niche now is helping realtors with their branding. So.
Yeah, I think it's something that we hear a lot from our listeners, which is, hey, I want to really revamp my brand or figure out what my brand is. And then, everyone, I think, always wants to start on with the design. So they'll say, oh, I like this look. But I'm curious, when you start to work with a client, like a realtor, for example, or a team, a real estate team, how do you begin to sort of help them discover their brand and what that sort of visual aesthetic might look like?
Yeah. So I'm contacted every single week pretty much by a real estate agent who's like, I need help with branding. but they're very overwhelmed, they're very confused, and they don't really know where to start. And the biggest thing I see is that they're afraid to really dive into what does it mean to figure out your branding. And so I have a lot of these conversations, but a lot of people are afraid to take that step forward of figuring it out. When I start with clients, the first thing I really need to know are, what are your goals as a real estate agent or a broker or a realtor? What are your goals in the next 6 months, in the next year, in the next 5 years? The clients who we've seen have the most success are the ones who are very clear about their goals, and creating those smart, actionable, measurable goals.
So if somebody's goal is, I want to attract more homeowners that want to sell, sell property, right? So I want more homeowners to reach out to me, to sell my property. So is that a specific enough goal, or are how specific do people need to be? Is it better to say, well, here's my current business, here's where I'd like it to grow? I'm just curious on what that sort of looks like.
Yeah, definitely. So, we, sometimes we do an audit of what are people currently doing. So we do an audit of, of their brand and of their business. But let's just say, like you said, the example, if they want to reach more, I would get much more specific of how many people. But you also want to make sure it's a goal within your control. Like, you want to make 20, you want to sell 20 houses this year. What is actually in your control with related to that goal?
Yeah, that makes sense. And maybe we should also define what branding is, and let's talk about, what does a brand strategist do? So let's first define what a brand strategist does. I think that'll give us a good intro to sort of branding 101.
Sure. So, so my vision of what a brand strategist is diving into your representation online and offline. And as a realtor, you have a very unique position where you have to show up amazing online and offline, both places. A lot of online entrepreneurs can get away with just showing up good online, but offline, it's not even part of the conversation, really. So a brand strategist is somebody who really strategically knows your goals, helps you identify your goals, your ideal clients, and who you want to serve and how you want to serve them. And it helps, and they help you bridge the gap between that and how you show up online and offline. And yeah, go ahead.
No, I think that's important, because realtors do struggle with that. So the thought is, okay, look, I have this professional presence, and we have this social media, these social media platforms that enable me to show my professional life as well as maybe my personal life. And I know realtors are always sort of trying to figure out, how do I stay on brand? Another, well, let's first, what actually I'd like to talk about is determining one's brand. Can you talk about how you determine what somebody's brand is?
So yeah, well, we can, everybody's definition of branding is different, but I like to see that branding is simply an extension of who you are, and let's just say professionally who you are, and how you are showing up online. So branding, it does go beyond the visual side of things. It includes the visual side of your brand, so colors, fonts, your overall style. But I think it also combines the way you talk the way you talk. So your language, it also ties in your values and your mission and your vision for yourself and your business. And it ties in all these pieces. So your brand, it's kind of a fancy word, but it's an extension of who you are and how you want to serve the world.
That's really important. And I think this idea of how do I want to serve the world is so critical, because the branding ultimately dictates not just the look and the feel of the materials that realtors will put out there, whether they're digital assets like social media posts, or they're maybe physical print assets. So it's, I know we think a lot about, well, I want my brochures to look a certain way. I want my flyers to look a certain way. I want my website to look a certain way. But really what we're talking about is demonstrating some sort of lifestyle, right? And I don't mean lifestyle in it has to be like a luxurious lifestyle. But there has to be some intentional thought about what realtors are putting out, whatever content they're putting out, whether it's social media or web or website content or print content. It has to be all aligned. Is that accurate?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So, the biggest thing I see is that there's a real lack in consistency in how people are showing up in the online space, and it's you sometimes feel like, oh, it's a saturated market maybe, and there's a lot of real estate agents, but there are a lot of realtors who are not doing it well. And I honestly think it's not that hard to take some time, put some intention into it, and you will immediately stand out, you'll be in that 1% of visually standing out with a solid brand.
Well, let's talk about maybe what real estate agents aren't doing well. So when you're exploring the landscape, what are some, and again, obviously this is not black and white, this is good, this is bad, but what are some things that you see that are either inconsistent or maybe not hitting the mark, not hitting the intended sort of audience result?
Yeah, so I spend a lot of time auditing people's brands, and what that means is I go to your Instagram. For me, my age or my just that's the platform I use typically. That's the number one thing I go to find people that I want to work with is Instagram. So but maybe your audience, maybe you have to figure out, maybe your audience is on Facebook, or maybe your audience is on LinkedIn, and really knowing who you're serving and where they hang out
Sure.
is important. So for me, I hang out on Instagram if you need to know. So I go and look at other realtors on Instagram, and what that means, I go look at their profile, and that first impression that I get, it is oftentimes like I'm kind of confused. I'm not really sure, what they do visually. It's not appealing, and in real estate, you want to make things really appealing to the buyer, to the sellers, right? Like you really need that first impression to be good. And so on Instagram, I see very inconsistent posts, or maybe they're taking templates from totally different sources. We can talk about Canva, but Canva is a design tool that a lot of realtors use for graphics, and there's a lot of templates on there that are free and great, but the minute you start to mix them all together, it looks kind of like
it creates inconsistency. Yeah.
So, that's one of the very first mistakes I often see. The next one is, what if I want to work with you, or I want to figure out more what you do? And there's that link in the bio of Instagram. And when I click that link, what happens? Where does it take me? So a lot of times I see that it takes you to a link tree. It's like a service, a link tree. So you click the link and it's a link tree. So then more links appear. I see them, they're the default style. They're not branded. They're not consistent with your look, or they're like really funky colors. So what I do when I'm auditing is I go through that experience of clicking through to the next step until I try to figure out, okay, how could I contact you, or how could I work with you, or how could I see your website? And that map, that journey, that's your client experience. So if I'm confused, if somebody's confused or overwhelmed, or they're like, am I in the right place? Did I click the right link and it doesn't look consistent? That you're going to lose your clients that way.
I think that's really important, because a lot of us just post content on social media as one-off content without a clear objective, right? So we might put a really beautiful post together, but we're just putting it there. And that's really just step one. And not, if you don't think through, and it doesn't, not that every post on Facebook or Instagram, it has to have an action step. But if you do have an action step, like, you were saying about Linktree. So this is a very common thing that people put in their Instagram bios in particular, are link trees. What is a link tree? A link tree is really a series of, so Instagram only allows you to put one link in your bio. So because of that, there's Linktree is a free service where people, or I think there's a pay service as well, but people can basically put a series of different links when you click on that link, and it shows up as different like action steps essentially. I'm curious what your thoughts are about link trees in general, because yes, I see that they could be very valuable, but you have to be really intentional about it. But do you like link trees in Instagram profiles, or would you prefer just one link going one place and not a second? Now I have because what happens when you click on a link tree or tap on a link tree is now you have maybe 6 or 7 or 10 additional buttons that you now have to read through to click. Curious what your thoughts are just in general about Linktree.
Okay, so thank you for explaining Linktree, and my mission is to abolish it from any client that works with us.
I thought you might say that.
Linktree. So I've
and the reason being that you don't like Linktree is what?
So I've gotten rid of quite a few of my clients' Linktrees. If you listen to this, you'll know. But one is it's sending your earned traffic. So you've earned the attention of potential client. It's sending those people to a platform that's not your platform. So it's sending it to Linktree's platform. For example, it's not sending it to your website platform where they could dive deeper into you. So they're just sent to Linktree. So I don't like that. That's one reason. The other is
because you could lose people because they could get overwhelmed by the sheer number of options you have. And so it's not a great, I guess that what I was getting at, I'm curious to get your thoughts. I don't find that when I hit a link and it goes to a link tree, I get sort of turned off as a consumer. I just sort of go, now I have to make another decision and I have to read through all these button options. I don't really want to do that.
Yeah, and so that's the second is that there's too many choices, and I mean not that you don't have to do that, but there's a lot of choices, and oftentimes I see that the specific text that the description that people have used on those buttons are very unclear and really make you think. And like you said, you don't want to do that. So you have to. The language is not clear. It's not actionable. Like what's going to happen then? So that's a mistake I see. And then just number 3 is just that it's not always a branded experience for your clients.
Yeah, and that's true. It's not. And I think if you are going to use a link tree as a realtor, you'd want to have just a couple of options. One would be, I'm thinking about buying a home. I'm thinking about selling a home. I'm thinking about, or I'm thinking about moving, or you want them to be super descriptive, but we can move on from Linktree. But I just see it as so common and so popular. And again, what I love, Elizabeth, about what you said is that your job is to take the journey of a consumer and basically be the consumer, go through the experience and find things that could be modified and changed and shored up, to make things more direct, more simple, and to give the client the actual experience that they want, right? So let's talk about a little bit about what good. So we know that there's a lot of problems with realtors just posting haphazard images, videos. There's no consistency. How important, by the way, is consistency in the visual? So the aesthetic, the vision, that there's consistency in the look, and also in the frequency. So I'm curious about frequency, because that's another thing we hear on the podcast is, how often should I be posting? And I know there isn't a magical answer, but how important is the consistency from the style and design to the actual frequency?
Yes. So, it's as important as you want to make it. And the reason you would want to be consistent and you would want to post regularly. And by that, I would mean at least once a week, but more likely higher volume. So 2 or 3 times a week. And, that you'll consistently show up in your audience's, feed on their social platform or in their inbox. If you happen to be sending emails out, on an email list. both of these things are important because then you start to gain recognition visually. People start to recognize you. Oh, that's, this
That's her
person's
look.
post.
Yeah.
That's her look. That's, they don't even have to spend, more than a couple milliseconds saying, oh, I know whose post that is. I'm going to check it out because she always provides really high value, or he always gives really great tips about this or that. And so it's showing up consistently, you start to build that recognition. So you build that no factor that you always hear about, no like trust factor, but you build that no factor. So people start to know you and start to build up that trust in you. And over time, when they're ready for your services, you keep showing up, you're going to stay top of mind.
Yeah, you came from the architecture world, and here in Chicago, one of the most prolific sort of architects here in Chicago's history is Mies van der Rohe, who has a very specific style, and you could essentially, from a branding perspective, all of the buildings, or I think I'm not familiar with everything he did, but for the buildings I know that he did, they're all a very specific style. They're a very specific brand, and you can look at these buildings here, and if you're a Chicago person, you that's listening, you know what we're talking about because they have a very specific brand and style. And and so I'm curious, just thinking about you in the architecture world, how can an agent, because what you really want is you want somebody to look at something and immediately know that that's you, right? Like we want somebody to associate a certain look, a certain feel, a certain style to a broker, or to a realtor. How should they start that journey? What's the first thing that an agent should do to really start down the sort of branding, exercise path?
Okay, so you made a really good analogy with architecture, and Chicago has a number of amazing architects in history, and I love the history of Chicago. But you want that moment that instantly they can recognize you. So it could be visually, but it also could be a specific color that people see that color and they always think of you. Or it could even be a specific word or like a phrase, and they think of you. I have a client, for example, like if I think of the word remarkable, or I think of like a deep, like a kind of a deep red color. We have a client we work with, Marky Lemon
who has been on our show.
I instantly think, amazing. Yeah. I instantly think of her, so that is brand recognition. It can be a color, a word, or something. So, you have to think about you and what you don't need to think of 10 things, but it really is what it can be, that one thing that is an extension of who you are, what you like, and also relates to your ideal client. What can be that one thing that's part of your brand?
And how would somebody determine, what's a way somebody could determine what that one thing is? If somebody says, I don't really know, Marky Lemons, you mentioned, has remarkable. That's her remarkable, right? That's her, her brand, and it works. But if for somebody that doesn't have that, how would you suggest that they might go about figuring out what their brand is?
Okay. I'll think of at least two questions, but you could ask yourself one question, which is, if you had the perfect birthday celebration, what would that look like for you? Maybe that's a quiet evening with just your family, with a glass of wine, and it's very peaceful, maybe outdoor dinner with candlelights, or maybe it's a more like outgoing type of party at night in the city. What would be your ideal birthday party? That's one way to start to figure out your personality. Another question would be, if you didn't have, all the work tasks on your to-do list in your planner today, what would you spend your day doing? And think about that. These are questions just to really start to dig in your personality. And we're all multi-passionate people, but that, what is the one recurring theme that keeps coming up? If you're more visual and you feel like, okay, I want to choose a specific color, you can say, if you go to your closet, what's the number one color you see for me, I have like a very neutral, like monochrome, clean white style. I open my closet, it's 90% white clothes.
Right. That's your look. You enjoy monochrome. And you also talked about what we're really talking about, I think, is authenticity. How important is in real estate? Well, look, I mean, for being honest, authenticity for realtors has not always been a top priority in the marketing side, right? We take pictures and we Photoshop them so that we all look perfect. We erase wrinkles. We look younger. We want to demonstrate perfection in the photos of the listings that we have. We want to artificially fix problems. How important is authenticity? And when I mean authenticity, I mean showing some of the cracks, showing some of the faults, the fault lines, right? The imperfections. Is it okay to show imperfections and do our audience want to see imperfection, or do they expect everything to look perfect?
Well, absolutely. They just want to see real life, your real life. You don't have to expose everything, of course, but they want to see reality more than the perfect world. That's absolutely, I think it's a non-negotiable at this point, when we all have smartphones, we're all connected 24/7. And yes, there's filters on Instagram and those are great, but you really just need to show up who you are and not change that.
I think that's a really good point. So I know sometimes people feel insecure about, doing video or making, oh, I don't know how to edit correctly, or I don't have the right lighting. But my experience has been that as long as you're providing quality content, that sort of trumps some of the imperfections, maybe with editing or with shooting or even just taking an image.
I think if you're stuck in that I don't know how phase, there are solutions out there. You don't need to know all the answers, because there are people teaching how to make Instagram reels for, as a real estate agent. We just created a course. One of our clients created a course on that, how to master reels. If you don't know the how, you can figure that out. But the best thing is just start posting and start getting out there and start getting that connection with your audience.
Well, I want to talk about Studio Classica. This is your company, and it's studioclassica.com, and it's studio classica.com. Let's talk about this and what you do for realtors.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So we help real estate agents show up more professionally online, and even in the offline space too, but mainly in the online space, because that's where people are searching, and that's where, if you keep showing up regularly on social media, branded, elevated, beautiful way, then, like we said earlier, your clients start to recognize you, and you stay top of mind. And when they're ready to sell their home or buy a home, you've stayed in their mind, and they will reach out to you, or they'll reach out to your real estate team. And so we especially help real estate real estate leaders in the space who want to start helping other real estate agents. So a big part of who we help is people who want to teach how to build a successful real estate business, or how to add 6 figures to your real estate income in the next year. And so that teaching mentality, that mentorship, or if people who want to create courses, and even if you don't feel like you're big in your field yet, we have people rising leaders who they're ready to create a course, because they start to get a lot of the same questions from their agents, or from people online, and that's a sign that you can package up that knowledge that you have about some specific niche of real estate, and there are other people out there who want to learn from you.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, you can basically, so when agents work with you, when realtors work with you, you can build them websites, you can work with their social media posts. Tell us some of the services that you assist with.
Yeah, perfect. Yes, absolutely. So we help, figure out your branding, So figure out, the brand strategy, but also the visual side of it. So the visual social media posts, your profile headers on Facebook or LinkedIn. We make sure it's consistent everywhere you want to show up online. We, for example, create social media templates that then you can use and carry forward. Usually we do that as part of a branding package. From there, we often build like your complete website, which is your personal brand website. I know a lot of real estate people have a website that they're sort of given, and I generally think those are not so functional, especially if you're trying to really build your personal brand and your identity in the space. So we build your custom website, and then from there, oftentimes we build, for those who want to teach, we would build the courses or membership spaces in the online space. So a full branding and design services.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And so, what are a couple tips that you have for anyone that is out there that is thinking of redesigning their site, redesigning some of their colors? What's in right now? What do the public want to see when they're hitting a website or social media? Like, what are some aesthetic sort of trends that would be helpful for our audience to know?
So, aesthetic trends I see are incorporating videos into your website and into your, definitely into your social media. But if we focus on the website, tying in video to your website, whether that's sort of a video background that's professionally filmed, or if it's just a video of you sitting down in front of a camera, get a nice background and, talk about, a 2-minute, 3-minute clip about what you do and who you help, and including that sort of video somewhere on your website. That video is a huge way to connect, and to really accelerate that connection with somebody watching it. And you can really, accelerate the speed at which they get to know you or feel like they know you. Because, for example, I have a video somewhere in my onboarding process. When we start new clients, I have a video somewhere there, and people feel like people have told me, "Oh, I feel like I already know you or I've already talked to you," even though we haven't talked yet. So it just bridges that gap.
Isn't that ultimately the goal, right? If it's a stranger who has not actually met the agent yet, if they can say, "Gosh, I feel like I know you," that's a huge victory, isn't it?
So the video is it was trending from 2020, but it's not going away. So get on the video bandwagon is the number one.
Yeah, start making video. And I think we're so lucky to have devices, in our pockets at all times that produce high quality, at least recording. And we have the ability to produce content that our audience wants very inexpensively. But if you really want to take it to the next level, you really need somebody to look. I'll give you a really simple example. I've been a writer for a long time. And when I write a piece for a publication, I work and rework it and rewrite it, and I think it looks perfect. Then I send it off to an editor and it comes back looking totally different. And the editor's job is to make it look better for the audience that it's going to be read by. And I am always like, I'm going to send this off to the editor. They're going to send it back without any changes. And they're going to go, "Wow, DJ, you are brilliant. This is just going to go, we're going to publish this just as you wrote it." And it's never happened. They always rewrite it and they always make it better. And my point by saying that is, yes, you can put up all your own posts. You can use Canva, as we mentioned earlier. It's a great tool. There's lots of really neat functionality there. And it's awesome. But you probably should run it through an editor, somebody like Elizabeth, prior, because she's going to make everything look the right way. And that's, that's really important. And how important is it to have somebody like that, to edit, to be your consistency editor, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I think if you're serious about building a successful business, about growing your real estate business, it's definitely I'm totally biased, but it's worth the investment to, run it through professional, like work with a professional for a period of time to get that visual look, get that brand figured out, because it is going to change the game in you showing up for your clients. You're going to feel more confident in putting those posts out on social media, and you're going to feel, much more direction in who you're helping and how you're going to show up online. And, it will pay back dividends in your return on your investment, when you get, you're going to hit your goals because you're determined to do that and you're serious about it. So I think it's a game changer, really.
And for everyone listening, the reason why we had Elizabeth on is she and her team do incredible, absolutely incredible work. I really encourage everyone listening to visit Elizabeth's website. Just take a look at what she does for realtors and other brands that she works with. It's really remarkable. And notice as you look through some of her work, how you feel as you're perusing the different websites that they've created, different brands that they've worked with. Notice the feeling that comes through. And if that resonates with you, if you go, gosh, I want people when they visit me digitally online, whether it's on social media or on my own website, if I want my clients to have a similar experience, I would encourage you, you don't have to do everything yourself. Reach out to Elizabeth. She is awesome. She's worked with some of the top realtors in the country. She's worked with people that have been on our show. And that's why we have her on the show, because she is so highly recommended. But I want everyone to visit her website, which is studioclassica.com. By the way, we have a link to that in the show notes. So if you're listening on a podcast app, just look in the show notes for Studio Classica, but you can visit it yourself too. Studio Classica, A at the end, studioclassica.com, and take a look at what they do. It is absolutely remarkable. It's clean, it's minimal, it's absolutely on trend. I am Elizabeth's biggest fan, because when you look at what she does, it is absolutely just such a clean and beautiful aesthetic. And she can help you do that. You don't have to figure out how to do that yourself. By the way, creating clean, minimal, beautiful content is not easy. That's why you hire somebody like Elizabeth. It's actually difficult to do. So that's why you hire her. But Elizabeth, this is a perfect time to sort of wrap up our episode, because I want everyone to go visit your website. And then I want everyone to reach out to Elizabeth too, if you're looking to hire a branding expert. I will tell you, branding is one of the most important parts of your marketing strategy. It's oftentimes overlooked. In fact, it's almost always overlooked, because we just want to put out content. But if there's no intention behind it, if there's no cohesive strategy, you're really going to run into some challenges. Hire somebody like Elizabeth. I really, really encourage you to do that. So Elizabeth, what's the best way somebody should reach out to you if they want to work with you?
Well, thank you so much, DJ. And if you are thinking about what can we do with your branding or your website, the best way to reach out is, of course, our website, studioclassica.com. And we, go to our services page, and you can check out more about what we do, and check out our packages, how we can work together.
Yeah, I really encourage all of our listeners to check it out. And I wish you were an advertiser of ours, because I am so passionate about your work, and maybe one day you will be. But for now, I really encourage our audience to check it out. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for being on our show. We are honored to have you. And for everyone out there, visit studioclassical.com. Please also tell a friend about this podcast. Think about one other agent in your office that needs help with their branding. Send them a link to this episode. They can find us at keepingitrealpod.com. All of our episodes are there. It can be downloaded and streamed right from a browser, or just pull up a podcast app, search for Keeping It Real, hit the subscribe button, and please leave us a review. Let us know what you think of our show. So whatever system you might be listening to us on, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon, wherever, let us know what you think of the show. Leave us a review. Elizabeth, thank you so much, all the way from Latvia. We are excited to chat with you. Thank you for taking time with us, and we will see everybody on the next episode.